I'll call this regular scheduled work session to order. First, we'll go over tonight's regular agenda. We have, you all have a copy of the announcements of the pledge to the flag. We have Girl Scout Troop 1713 here tonight, and they'll also be giving us a short presentation under invited guests. You have a copy of the resolution honoring the Patriot Guard Riders. You've also received a copy of the minutes. Does anybody have any questions or objections to the minutes from June 10th, 2013?
Yes, there's an error in it.
Okay, where's that at?
Marilyn Sweeney is not listed as a speaker.
If I can have a motion to postpone those, and we'll correct them and put them on the next council. We have invited guests. We'll have the Girl Scout troop here to give us a short presentation about the project they're working on.
I have a question about invited guests. What is the protocol for having to invite a guest to be on here? Is that done through the mayor's office, or does council do that on their own? And the reason I'm asking is, I have two people, Ted So-Called and Judy Level, that are working on a project. And I would love for them to come and be an invited guest and explain this. They have a wonderful project they're doing, and it's their idea, and they're getting it off the ground, and I think Snellville should hear about it.
Okay.
So is it possible for me, no objections from council, to put them on the next agenda? Thank you.
And the Girl Scouts contacted us and asked us, and that was the best place we thought to put them, so that's okay. Committee department reports. We have Ms. Andrews here to give us a report for the Evermore CID. Mr. Platt, I saw somewhere, is here to give us a report of Parks and Rec Board, and then are you going to have a city manager report for us?
I will. Since the LCI is not on the work session, I'll give you an update there as well as PIL update.
Okay. We have no consent agenda for old business public hearing. We have the second reading on the heliport. Mr. Davis, do you want to give us any updates on that?
The heliport project was approved by the Planning Commission with two conditions. One involved the signage size, the other involved giving the planning department the authority to make changes administratively for minor variations. It's a fairly simple operation. It's one helicopter, one hangar. The flight lines for it go out parallel to 124 and across 124. Very few flights per day as a rule. We have the entire crew, I think, from Erie back here tonight, as well as representatives of the hospital if there are any real questions. But it's essentially an extension of the helipad they already have. They're just going to have a hangar for this one, and it'll be over in the old construction layout yard next to MOB1.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Davis?
Just so we can test it, we need to take a flight check.
There's always one.
Any other questions for Mr. Davis?
I did have one. There was one additional condition that we placed on it at the drafting stage, and it was to control the takeoff and landing that was disclosed in the site plan. It showed actually the takeoff zone.
Yes.
And so we put a third condition on that made it site plan specific, so that was an enforceable use condition. So that's
Sorry about that.
That's in the ordinance that you'll vote on.
And that's
if you want.
They had no objection to
No, my understanding was that was the second condition.
It's actually
correct?
third. There was John's second condition. He stated,
My second condition basically was that I could give you administrative variances
Gotcha.
for minor changes.
Okay.
This was the third condition, and I forgot about it. Sorry about that.
Can
And
we
that-
make sure between the meeting and the actual meeting that you guys have a chance, and then that way when we ask it on the record, everybody will be. Yeah, that's fine. Does anybody have any other questions? We then have consideration action on extension of variances for 2508 East Main Street. Mr. Davis?
2508 East Main Street is the small rock house next to Randy Simpson's residence on 78, where I think it's a small road cuts right down between. Faith? Okay. There were conditions issued on that house in 2009, and they had an expiration date, and the applicants allowed that to lapse, and their tenants were out of the building. They have a chance to bring some new tenants in, which are a local HVAC company for office operations, and they want to get an extension of the old variances for 1 year. During the year, they would make the final variance application and formalize the arrangement for that house.
Wouldn't this property be involved in the intersection? I mean, is it not a probability that that's gonna be involved in some way?
The only way it'll be involved is Pate Street, where it enters 78,
Yeah.
will no longer enter 78. All of the intersection work is to the north because
Because
of
of
the
the
historic
historic.
structures.
Okay, so these.
These structures are they're classified as historic by GDOT,
Mhm.
and it would be more of a problem to knock them down and build over there than it is to acquire
I just thought it'd be,
They
if
designed
they're
around
gonna
it,
be,
basically.
if they're gonna be affected, then it'd be silly to have to do these variances and then have them destroyed when we do the intersection.
No, they will not be affected by the intersection.
Additional questions for Mr. Davis?
Let's just say they lose the tenant. Are we gonna review this again in a year and say, and then can we hold their feet to the fire?
No.
Because we can't use that same thing again.
No, what I have requested and what they've asked for is a 1-year extension. During that time, they would put the finalized conditions on the site and ask for the variances. That site is in the corridor overlay district, and it's a very small site. It can be used for very little. And the corridor overlay stuff just wouldn't make any sense trying to apply it to the thing. For instance, if you had to put a sidewalk on Pate Street or Pate Road right there, you'd be digging into a grade slope to make it work. The use they have for it right now is just a simple office area for a small company. That will work, but to apply all of the overlay structures to it would be virtually impossible. You'd have to assemble property out there to make a large enough site to apply those. And we'll work with them to determine what permanent variances they need. It's very much like the city did with Family Tree, same type of process.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. We then have consideration on our millage rate. We are not increasing the millage rate, and so we don't need to have the 3 meetings, but we do have to have public comment, so this is an opportunity for people to make public comment. Have you received any written comments prior to tonight? Okay. And then under new business, we'll have the actual resolution setting the millage rate. Mr. Sanders, you want to give us any update on that?
And the recommendation is exactly what was approved in the budget, 4.9 mils. We feel like that will meet our budgeted figure. It is a reduction, once again, which will give the city business and resident owners a full 1 mil reduction over the last 4 years. That's really unheard of, given what we've gone through in the last 4 or 5 years economically. And I am asking for that 4.9. It will be very, very difficult to reduce that in the future unless our digest grows. And we're working on that also. But given where we are digest-wise, given the decrease that we had this year, the tax assessor's office was pretty accurate this year. There was a reduction. And so it's going to be very tough in future budget years. That 4.9 is as low as we can go right now.
Do you know what percentage where our real estate's at 629? Do you know what percentage decrease that was?
It was a little over a 1% reduction.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sanders? we have, Lawrenceville has requested to use our mobile stage.
And I am asking that that be removed. We've run into some logistical issues. When we went to Grayson, basically, we took it on Thursday, and I think you guys were over there to open it up and close it. We went to get it on Monday, no problem. And the Lawrenceville folks came over to look at the stage, met with Public Works, and their use is not quite as simple as that at this point in time. So I'm asking that we do not approve that right now. And I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with Gay. We're gonna talk to the Lawrenceville officials and try to work through some of the logistical problems.
We have time to do that, right? It's not-
We got
not
plenty
gonna
of
take
time, not until October, I believe.
Yeah, and I'd certainly, since I'm trained with that thing, I'd certainly be able to assist CRC, you know, Lawrenceville, in any way they need.
It's just, like I said, they thought it was a little more mobile than it actually is.
They just need a bigger truck.
And,
Come on, step up, buddy.
so it is
Get rid of
a,
the, you know, the 83 F-150, come on, give them a little money over there.
Gay and I both got worried when we heard the word forklift. You've been in the carpet mill.
As you should.
Anyway,
Let's say call that a clue, buddy.
Anyway,
What
we'll
we'll say.
I would just ask for a delay there, and we'll try to work it out with the Lawrenceville folks.
So we just want to postpone that then until when the second meeting in August, that give you enough time?
I'd say that's plenty of time.
Okay.
We have the police vehicles. Chief, you want to give us an update on that?
We budgeted for 3 police cars, and there are 3 available at Aiken now. They're V6s, which in the past we've been buying V8s, and the new state contract will come out. So if we wait, we'll have to order a new state contract, which will increase the price. But this is already about almost a $500 reduction in the price that we paid last year.
Do you know of any long-term maintenance issues or anything with the V6 versus the V8?
They've been out long enough that
So we're
it's actually a
comfortable
little
with
bit
the
less.
performance and the maintenance upkeep, things like
The
that?
performance is unbelievably close.
Okay.
So, I mean, in acceleration, takeoff,
Okay.
lasting, maintenance, almost everything is virtually the same.
Okay, good.
And that concludes our regular agenda. Then for our work session, do we have any correspondence we need to review? Notice the amendment, city attorney's report.
Only that we need an executive session.
And we have discussion items. We have BOA 0905. We need to have further discussion of that. Is everybody okay?
It's a little complicated, but I think we'll resolve it during the meetings.
Sanitation ordinance request.
There was an outstanding request, I believe, that was received several months ago, and Gay has an update on that. I think it's from Mr.
Darby.
Darby.
He called and asked about having trash cans out of sight at residences. And initially, I thought he was talking about you couldn't put your cart at the curb longer than 12 hours prior or 12 hours after it was picked up. But actually, what he is wanting us to do is rewrite an ordinance that would make people have to put their trash cans behind their home or build an enclosure around their trash cans. And I'll be honest, I don't think that that would be something that the city should mandate to our citizens, because sometimes it's hard to get a full trash can if you have to put it behind your home. If it's not a walkway or something, it's very difficult to have that trash can moved down to the curb. And then the expense of having enclosures built by residents. Some residents can't afford it or may not want it, or just the logistics of everything may not work. But this is the request, and we do have in our ordinance where they can't have over accumulation or anything like that, but that was the request basically, is to.
And basically, we feel like we need to put it to rest. The solution would be unenforceable and over-regulatory in my mind.
And I think there's legal issues.
And,
I had some correspondence and tried to point out, there are a number of issues, because some people have the trash at the side of their house. It's still visible. And I just don't think you can ask people, as you say, to go out, build an enclosure, do this, do that. Some people don't have the money, some people don't have the geography
Right.
on their land to be able to do that in any kind of a fashion that's going to be usable. And I do think it's overreach.
So
You know, where do you stop? Now you can't have bicycles in front.
is it the consensus of council that we don't want to go any further on this?
Now, if he wants to take the enclosures, I think that's up to him. Just my
Careful what you wish for there.
It's gonna happen.
All right, next we have Foundations of American Law and Government display. I received a request from Pam Ewing. Her company, if you guys are familiar, Governor Deal passed a bill, HB 766, that allowed for certain documents to be displayed in courthouses. It allows for the Ten Commandments, the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, the Magna Carta, the Star-Spangled Banner, the national motto, "In God We Trust," preamble to the Georgia Constitution, the Bill of Rights of the United States, and the inscription on the image of the Lady Justice. The company Craft Electric would like to present City Hall with a set of these documents to be hung on our walls, and they are framed. And so that would come
And
at
we
no
have
charge.
representatives here for that.
Okay, that would come at no charge to the city, so I put it on tonight's agenda to get approval of council for that.
I've also received a phone call from the gentleman at Craft Electric, and to understand these 10 pictures framed cost about $1,300. And they're very presentable, they're very nice.
I believe
went
they have
out
some
along.
samples to show.
And, I think this would be a good addition to City Hall. Just, it would be a best of a place that would be representative of them, and I certainly support it.
And it's not just Craft Electric, it's Patriots, it's the city of.
I got a call from the gentleman at Craft Electric, that's all. Was it you that called me?
It was not, it was the employee.
Okay.
And so I put it on tonight's agenda to make sure there was no opposition from council before we went forward with this. So we will have city staff get in contact and then make the appropriate arrangements.
Very nice.
If anyone has any questions. Thank y'all. Moving on, then we have wine shops. I think y'all are all familiar with Nico's wine shop in Snellville. It was brought to my attention that possibly the city of Lawrenceville has a more lenient ordinance when it comes to allowing wine stores, and there was a request from Nico to see if we could amend our city of Snellville ordinance to allow him less space dedicated to food sales and more to, I guess, wine and beer. That fairly accurate?
Yeah.
And so I don't know what staff, I have asked staff to look into Lawrenceville's ordinance. Did y'all find anything out?
Lawrenceville's ordinance has a provision in it to allow for just what you described. We just needed some policy guidance on how to proceed. I don't know that there's ever been a challenge to it or anything like that. I assume it's good law.
Will it just take just to take an amendment on council, amending it and approving it?
And then the alcoholic beverage code.
Then I asked that we put that on, if we can make those amendments and put it on for a first reading at our next council meeting.
Okay. To track the,
To track the language of the Lawrenceville ordinance. July 22nd.
Do we have to know what other, or if there are others that this will affect? Anybody that sells wine is, or just specific, or do we know?
we can,
It will probably affect the convenience stores.
It really, the Lawrenceville defines wine shop pretty narrowly. I mean, it's not a convenience store driven
I
definition.
think the way they describe it is like, they allow those wine shops as a wine shop as this, their percentage of the sale of wine is more than everything else. That's how they let them do it just as a wine shop. And they don't have to sell other stuff as part of the ordinance.
So the
Some
predominant
percentage
product,
of the
if you
wines.
will, or
Right.
predominant service, if you will, would
It's
be
just
the
the wine.
sales of wine.
Wine, right.
Now, if we've got a convenience store and the predominant sale is gasoline,
Gasoline, then
and they
can-
sell wine,
There's a
then
difference. There's a
they
difference.
couldn't do,
There'd be a delineation.
Publix wouldn't be,
No.
so I'm just trying to, in my head, figure out who else could or could not benefit.
So we need to make sure that our definition of wine shop, not just the food percentages, but our definition of wine shop mirrors that of wine.
We would try to draw it as narrowly as possible.
You know, I mean, I don't wanna, you know, we wanna do everything we can to do the right thing, but we don't wanna make something that's gonna create problems.
Group homes, we currently have a moratorium. I think staff's been working on an update to our group home ordinance. He's punning to you.
Our city attorney,
We have, we've done a couple of drafts back and forth.
yeah, we got our final notes to you just before you went on vacation.
Okay, so he's, you know, not major, those were not major changes, so we should have something ready for planning commission when they meet, ready for the mayor and council as soon as planning commission gets it.
First meeting in August, it should go to mayor and council for first review.
Are we good on our moratorium dates then?
We're good, we're in the August, but substantively, I think we presented it at a planning commission meeting and gave some, it has some different kind of guidelines in it that I think y'all, is what y'all were looking for. And substantively, even though we've gone back and forth, those guidelines haven't changed. So we're pretty much on the same track we were on last time it was presented. So, but it'll be ready to go. I'll try and get it to John in the morning.
Anybody have any questions about the group home moratorium? Or new ordinance? Alcohol on the green. Mr. Snellville, update, or Kelly, do you want to tell us about the request of staff, or?
Well, we would just like it, the availability when we have concerts and whatnot. And I think, Tony, were you gonna check to see if that's something we could do, like with a local wine shop to use their license, or?
Right. I don't think there's certainly not a problem with using your local distributors or licensed groups to actually sell. In fact, I think both our ordinance and your ordinance were originally written to require that because we didn't want to be punitive to the local providers. But I think the previous administrator of STAT changed it so that they could use national distributors in the national processing of those types of events. It's sort of their, but I think it still doesn't bar local folks from providing. Now, it is restricted, and I glanced at this subject matter, but it looked like y'all wanted to do things beyond a contained area, and that would require an ordinance change.
Now, I had understood that it wasn't beyond a contained area. It was just an enlarged contained area.
Well, an enlarged contained area would require us to have the means to contain the area. So if you're looking at the green space, and if you contain a smaller area, you're, I think, limiting the people who can be in that area because you have parties that come in that part of them want to be in and part of them don't, and then they're separated. And I don't think we have the means to contain the whole green at this time.
Right.
So-
And that's what I would ask, that we all work together with our law enforcement folks and come up with something that's practical, that, you know, that makes sense for the event as well as controlling the event as well as we can. I think there's some room there. I guess we need to get on the same page as far as how much room.
Okay. Okay, we're looking to, hopefully, if we can work it out, would love to be able to have beer and wine sold for the August concert. I know the July concert's out of the question, seeing as how it's a week and a half out. But, the jazz concert in August would be great. If we could work something out that we could advertise that as well. Work out the kinks and have it so we can serve.
What date is the jazz concert?
I think it's the 24th.
So we have 3 meetings between now and then, we got worked out, I guess.
August 24th.
What was the 20th? Oh, the second meeting in August, the 26th. Did I make phone music right?
It's possible. It's technically possible, so.
But if you can understand, if we, the sooner that we can know if it's possible, you know, we get the word out.
Okay.
See, as in the past, the couple times that we've had alcohol, beer and wine on the green, I mean, we haven't really sold a ton of it, and I think it's a matter of just getting the word out that it's available, so. You know,
I think the
like-
key to getting it is coming up with the, as Bush said, coming up with the police department, come up with a solution on how you can control it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you gotta have boundaries of some sort, you gotta know what those boundaries are. Police have to be comfortable if they can man those boundaries. It's probably gonna cost a little bit more for police for those events, you know, because you're gonna have more people if you're talking about controlling a larger area. You know, so I mean, before council can give you an okay, I think you and the police department have to both be comfortable what we can do, and the city manager has to be comfortable in what can be done and that can be controlled. And if you can do that, then
I mean, we want to do everything we can to make the event successful.
Right.
Ultra successful, but we need to do it within certain parameters, so.
So you gotta get on your horse and make sure by the second meeting in July, if you want it for August, by the second meeting in July, you have something that's concrete so that Mr. Powell can put it in the form of an ordinance, and we can have a first reading on it, so that,
Consider it done.
that's the only way it has to have 2 readings, like that. So, I mean, you have to have a second meeting by the first meeting in August,
Okay.
and that's 5 weeks away.
Okay. We're
And you've
good.
got 2 weeks to get the first reading done, so.
Okay.
I think that's what Tony referred to as
It's
the
a-
technical side.
Yeah. So as they would say on ESPN, the ball's in your court.
And it's rolling.
Performance audit.